Hello and welcome to No Bad Notes, a screenwriting podcast. I'm Athena Mandis, a screenwriter, filmmaker and lecturer in film practice at Queen Mary University.
And I'm Hannah Palmer-Pryor, producer turned screenwriter. And we're on a mission to encourage emerging screenwriters to embrace feedback and take on the mantra that there are no bad notes.
Well, yeah, there might be badly communicated notes.
Yeah, there are differences in taste.
You might even have some odd AI-generated feedback too. But if a human has read your script, whether you are an industry veteran or just your average viewer, we want to encourage you to be open to feedback, because ultimately this is a collaborative industry and the different perspective might just unlock some magic.
To help us on our mission, we are interviewing screenwriters and their trusted producers and script editors to explore the professional development process and see how notes help screenwriters convert their scripts to screen. So today we are incredibly lucky to have screenwriter David Allison, whose credits include Suspect, Marcella, Trust Me, and was also co-creator of Bedlam, and producer Jennifer Burnet, who has worked on EastEnders, Mystic, and Bookish. However, today they are joining us to talk about the making of Channel 4's smash hit, The Couple Next Door. Welcome.
Hello.
Nice to be here.
Oh, thank you so much for coming. First of all, congratulations, you've gone into season 2, which is like every writer's dream to get a season out there, and to go into season 2 is an absolute amazing achievement. I wonder if you could track back a little bit and walk us through how this whole project came about, because it's a Danish adaptation, or it's based on a Danish series.
Well, no, even more confusing. So we
Go for it, David.
We go right back. The series 1 was a kind of a very loose adaptation of a Dutch series.
Which was itself a loose adaptation of a book.
Which was itself a loose adaptation of a book. And the original series was called New Neighbours. I'm not going to do it in Flemish.
Nieuwe Buren. No, that's terrible. Nieuwe Buren, something like that.
Jen's been trying to learn Flemish for the last couple of years, because we do a lot of stuff in Belgium. But anyway, as you can see, it's a work in progress.
Yes.
But,
Certainly better than my Flemish.
well, better than anywhere else Flemish, so don't worry. It's,
a lot of money in Belgium for stuff, so Flemish is the left.
Well, indeed.
Yes.
So I met Walter and Joe, who run Eagle Eye. Some of your listeners may be aware Walter presents the big Channel 4 strand of world drama, and that's Walter Uzzolini and Joe McGuire. And they had set up this company, and they were sort of using the IP of these shows and essentially sort of doing UK remakes. I met them and we really got on, and about, I think maybe a couple of months later, they came and they said, look, we've got this series. The original was very, very big in Holland. It's got a lot of issues. You might not love certain things about it, but is there something in there that you think you could riff on? So I watched it, and it was weird. Initially, I thought, oh, no, this isn't for me. And then I sort of suddenly realized what it was about, or what I could write about. I've always been interested in relationships and sexuality and where people are in the world. And I think there's something about suburbia. You know, lots of us grew up in suburbia. Lots of us have that experience of living in a world where there are sort of completely unwritten rules about something, that everybody understands the rules and everyone understands how you are and are not allowed to behave. And I sort of, once I got my head around that, suddenly I was really excited about it. And that's how that sort of began, really. And then, Jen, let's see, what stage were we at when you came on board?
I think it was commissioned, obviously, so it's a little bit later. And I think you were writing episode 2.
Pilot was well alive at that point, I think, wasn't it?
Absolutely,
Yes.
we knew so. And I, similarly to you, I had that same, and weirdly, I think everyone that's worked on the project has had the same sort of initial reaction to the source material. It's gone, oh no, I don't want to work on this. I went to my interview thinking, no, I'm not doing this.
No,
because...
actually, Jen, what did you actually think? I remember you telling me what you actually
I'm about to, yes. Because I remember thinking, oh God, it's going to be me working with a male writer talking about sex for like 6 months. And that's going to be weird. And I don't know what is this show? And then I had my interview with Joe, Walter and David on Zoom. And then I came off the interview and I was like, yes, I want to do this. And I think a lot of the cast felt the same way at the beginning as well. Most people that when they hear what the show's about, they immediately don't want to do it. And then I think as soon as you start talking about what it is to us. I think people realise it's more than just this seemingly salacious show. That's not why we're doing it. That's just part of it.
I think remember you telling me you were like, I don't think I want to do the weird sex show. It's so interesting as well about our attitude to sex as well.
Yeah.
I think it's so indicatively fascinating. I've been aware of this all the way through. I'm writing male and female characters and male and female sexualities and all of those things. And I'm really aware of the responsibility of that. And I'm sure you're thinking, oh, male writer, whatever, that kind of vibe. So, for example, I banned the S word. I don't want anyone saying swinging. We nearly managed to get away with that. One of the cast kept saying the word in interviews, but we did just about manage to excise it because it has a connotation of like pampas grass or dogging or, I don't know, just something slightly grim and sort of salacious as well and sort of grubby. So, for example, in thinking about the Becca character in series 1, it was like she needs to be someone who's passionate about non-monogamy. Again, that phrase, not swinging. And that was trying to live her life in a way that we can give her agency and dignity and all of that kind of stuff. And so it was kind of a journey to start. It's really fascinating to take something and turn it into something else, while you would probably recognise some parts of the narrative, definitely. And I think structurally there were things about it that we kept because it worked really well in terms of the structure.
So can you tell us a little bit about that, David? Like what was helpful about the adaptation in terms of like you had a structure and a storyline vaguely to work with, and then how much freedom you were given by Channel 4 and Jen, also how much you were trying to keep David to a promise of what you were delivering to Channel 4 and how much freedom you were allowed to put into the adaptation.
I think we were given an awful lot of freedom to the point where when I came on board, in fact, before going back to my interview, they hadn't actually told me what the show was. So I just found it myself because I don't know, they gave me some kind of clue and I'd figured it out via having read the Couple Next Door book accidentally, thinking it was going to be that. And obviously it wasn't. So I'd watched, I think, episodes 1 and 2 when I had my interview. And at that point, David said to me, I don't want you to watch the rest of the series. I don't want you to know. I think we just treat this as if we're just starting from scratch. And we did. I mean, we were given incredible freedom, weren't we, David?
Incredible freedom. I think we've had even more freedom in series 2. And I'm acutely aware as a writer, I'm going to big Jen up lots today. She's going to, but like,
I hate it.
Jen is one of those, very lucky as a writer if you meet somebody who's a creative partner. And there are a lot of people who are, good on scripts and who are good, kind of people to work on, script editors and producers. But it's rare to meet someone who has that unbelievable understanding of story, which Jen does, and also had to get the best out of me. I think everyone laughs at us because we just sound like a bickering married couple.
We do, like production teams. Yeah, if you put us in this, you get us in the same room in front of.
If we're ever in the office,
like,
in the Eagle Eye office, people are like, "Is this how you guys? Is this what you do all day?" We're like, "Yeah." So.
But it's that trust between you, isn't it, that's built. And I think that's something that we're really keen to get across to our listeners as well, that, your script editors, your producers are such a fundamental part of this process, and to not be afraid of notes. This is how to elevate your ideas.
Getting good notes off talented people is a privilege, and you should understand, and, bearing in mind the title of your podcast, like it is. I mean, there are bad notes, by the way, definitely. I've had plenty of those in my time. But like, if you're getting good notes from talented people, then you have the privilege of making your show a lot better. Your script's a lot better. And if you have a problem with that, it is not possible to do this job in a way that is sustainable. On this show, essentially, series 1, originally, Jen was we hired as a script editor, and then she ended up producing the show because she's just obviously brilliant. And then second series, I mean, you ran the ship really completely. And I think when Walter and Joe were quite involved from series 1 because we were just getting to know this working relationship. By series 2, we really just got to go and make the show we wanted to make. And they gave us enormous creative freedom. And people often ask me, oh, what was the writer's room? The writer's room was me and Jen.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I mean, they did have very strong opinions on some things. And they nixed
totally.
our rom-com ending that we loved for a while.
I forgot about that.
I think it's important to say to people, I think, who have listened to a lot of American podcasts as well, is that, as David says, yeah, we are technically a writer's room of 2. I would never call myself a writer because I don't write. But a lot of what my job is work that would be done by writers in the US, being in the room, doing the storylining, helping break the stories, and then being on set. representing David, representing the scripts, and then right through the edits. So I feel very, very lucky to be able to be so involved, because I think in the US producers often aren't.
So you both met for the first time on the beginning of this show. You didn't work
on a
before.
Zoom, yeah.
On a
Yeah.
Zoom. So to go from that to having an entrusted person to give you notes, David, that made sense. What was that moment? What was the Jen note that made you go, she knows her stuff?
I just what is the specific note?
What was the beginning?
I think you just, from day one, were not afraid to get straight in. And do you remember what? Because I'm trying to remember
I think the first thing we did was we just sat down. I read everything, and I think we just sat down to big picture character journeys. I think we just got right in there. But I think for you, I don't want to talk for you, but I think one big thing, and again, this is massive credit to Walter and Joe, because I think in a lot of companies, you just have a script editor imposed on you. But you were given a lot of freedom to say that it was me you wanted after meeting various people. So I think that probably helped a lot as well, that you felt you had some agency in that process.
Well, they actually hadn't used script editors.
No, they hadn't.
And it was really interesting. So I was like, I want to kind of create a partner here, and that's how I work best. I need to bounce. I need to talk things through. I need to work everything out verbally and all of that kind of stuff. But I think it was really obvious very quickly that Jen just had a real massive rigor about something and was never happy to go, well, that'll do, ever at any point. And if that meant we were sat in a room until whenever, that's what we did. Because
thinking of our shooting scripts, aren't you, for series?
I am thinking about our shooting
Yes.
scripts, Jen, yes. I'm always very keen as absolutely the best version of what I can deliver under the time constraints and of course there are compromises. But I think
And so most of your process is working on Zoom, but do you also have headlines of written notes that go back and forth, like perhaps from the broadcaster, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. We get all sorts of notes from various people. And what's also quite interesting is when you get further down the process that we'll talk about later, is suddenly you start to be able to give notes as well as the writer and the producer in the edit and things like that. And that's fun. And you get your own back on production notes. But yeah, I think what's quite nice about us is we will do lots of sort of internal little drafts of whatever we're doing until we're happy. And then we present it to the execs and the channel. And
we almost do another draft.
yeah.
We do a Jen and David draft. So hopefully it's in a even better shape than people are expecting. That's what you want, is to people to go, oh, okay, this is really working. And if Jen's got an alarm going off about something when I first deliver to her, even at the writing time, I will make sure we've got kind of 2 days at the end where I can give to Jen, she can come back to me. And it's amazing. If you've got a scene that really isn't working, it'll really stick out when people read it. And if you can deal with that one scene or that one situation, suddenly everything just feels a lot better. So sometimes you can unlock something significant about a script quite easily, actually, if you've just got the right person to tell you what's going on.
In terms of notes, so early days, you're often getting much more big picture notes. And then I think we'll usually have notes feedback calls with the channel and with the execs. And everyone will get on those and we'll just talk it out. Our first commissioner for Couple did give more written notes, but with Lou, we kind of just talk through things in the end and things like that. And
everyone
then,
has their own way of working, I think.
Yeah, and then afterwards. But then I think as you get further down the process, it becomes more about email. And then the production notes start hitting. And
then there comes a point where director and first AD are on board, and you are literally sitting in a room. We've done that both times, like, okay, now we're going to sit in a room for a day or 2 days until the scripts are this length, or this many, we can't have, this location issues or whatever, and then you're dealing with practical things,
Well, this is actually a really unusual thing. I don't think many people do this. Maybe I'm wrong, and we're giving ourselves credit for this. But what we started doing is I found, like in early years working in other places and EastEnders, things like that, you often get a real gap between the editorial department and the production department, and they almost feel like enemies. And the editorial feel like production are taking away all the fun, and production feel like editorial are being really annoying about not wanting to change things like that. And I just think that's ridiculous. There's no point. Everyone's on the same team. Everyone wants to make a good show. There's no point. So what we do on Couple, which I absolutely love and I will always do on any other show if I can, is when it gets to the point where we've got scripts we're quite happy with, they're starting to put the schedule together and it's not quite matching, because it never does. We get everyone in a room. So we get the director, first AD, David, me, And the first series, we had the DOP as well. We weren't able to do that for the second series. So the 5 of us or 4 of us will sit around a table and we're like, okay, we're not leaving this room until these schedule. And we'll go through every scene. We'll go, okay, is there a way this could be directed that makes it easier to film? Do we really need this scene? Is there a way it could be scheduled that will make it easier? And then we sort of battle it down until we've all compromised and agreed and kept the best of the story that we can, but also made something that's achievable.
I mean, there's one thing you learn very early on in your career, but this is an extremely collaborative process. You are not a novelist in an ivory tower. This is an industrial process. It costs a lot of money. There are a lot of people involved. The little tightrope you're trying to walk is feeling creatively appreciated and having some autonomy, while at the same time understanding yours is one voice in the room. It's an important voice, but you are by no means that only voice, and to understand how important all those other things are. My first original series I got made, which was in 2009, a series called Boy Meets Girl, and on ITV, which was incredibly exciting for me. And, but I knew nothing about, I'd worked on soaps, I'd done a episode of whatever, but I'd done very little else. And really on that process, I kind of handed the scripts over to the director, had a meeting with the director. I went to the casting of both the leads, to be fair. And that was about it. I think I visited set once. I don't mean anyone was being weird. I just think actually back then as well, I think there was a sense of the right hands their scripts over. They had one chat about the creative vision with the director, and then they bugger off back to their home office.
Their ivory tower.
Obviously, the American model is so different, and that kind of hierarchy of is so different to what we do. And obviously, and let's be clear, there's a lot more money in the States. Although I think American industry is having a lot of issues. And I saw American writer friend recently who was saying, you know what? Working in Britain with actual money, even if there's less money, is better than hypothetical American money that doesn't exist anymore. But I think there is a bit of synergy and things are shifting a little bit. The experience I've had on this, second series is my first ever exec producer credit, which was amazing. And I have been involved in everything pretty much, from casting to the edit and being on set. I was Jen for a week when I was producer for a week on set, which was it's really hard.
He thinks it's me. I was still back in the UK doing half of what I do.
I know. It was, it's quite stressful.
I ran out of Schengen days, so David had to stay in so I didn't get deported by the end of the show.
So I was going to ask about that. So on series 1, you weren't on set, but now your role as an exec producer has made you much more involved.
I did come to set on series 1, definitely. I think 2 or 3 times, but I think it's an interesting shift in the role because you do feel maybe a bit more part of the core creative team. And it was a lovely thing to be offered to do off the back of the success of series 1. And I think none of us would have, in our wildest dreams, predicted how well it did. I mean, you could only dream for that. Just as you said, it's a privilege to get a show made, to be honest. So we are right in the kind of the stress of like, how many people are going to watch it? What the movie is like?
We should touch on how horrible that is. I mean, you deal with it better than I do, I think.
God,
I hate TX Day. It's
ridiculous, isn't it? I don't know. This is the thing you want most in the whole world, and it comes around and it just seems to be laden with immense amounts of stress.
Well, I think it's because it's the first time you just completely lose control. We've had, it's been our little baby for, I think it was like the 8th of January last year. You and I started the series 2 storyline. And we've had a say in everything. And now it's everyone else's. It's not ours anymore.
I think I probably have one of the nicest creative experiences I've had in my life. The loveliest cast. The real sense of kind of quite a family of people and everybody just really loving doing it. It was really one of those rare moments. And so I think we all feel we really, really care about it. We really, really, really,
want to do well for them, because the series 2 cast have just been absolutely incredible.
So it's an entirely new cast. There are a couple of characters like Hugh Dennis as Alan who have continued on through, but it's an anthology series, so set on the same street, but new characters. But have you got largely the same crew?
Yeah, there was quite a lot. I mean, obviously, director was the same, composer, first AD was the same. We had a new DOP, same AD team, which was brilliant. Yeah, so basically what happens is our company have this incredible relationship with Belgium to the point where we're now owned by OTV Studios, but we also have a subsidiary company in Belgium called Happy Duck. And Dries, our director on Couple, is the managing director of that company. So we have this incredible group of creative people who just go from, we've got this 2 or 3 teams, I think, they go from show to show to show.
Wow.
So everyone works together a lot and knows each other and likes each other. And so it's and filming in Belgium, it's very different to the UK. The actors respond really well to it, that it's a much more kind of egalitarian way of doing things. There's no real hierarchy. You know, in the UK, you get, if you're a producer on set or the writer on set, people running around making you tea. And like, no, you make your own. The actors make their own. You get your own breakfast. Everyone sits together at lunch. If a light needs to be moved, everyone will help move it. It's a very different kind of way of working, but it's a lovely way of working.
It's surprising to people. I mean, it's a smaller crew, and
Yeah,
you
much
are
smaller
really
and
really
faster.
aware of that. And everyone, and the speed at which everybody uses is incredible, and the quality of everybody.
It looks incredible.
It looks incredible. Set design, lighting, everyone is absolutely on their A game. It's really incredible. Actually.
Yeah, it really is. How much of when you were writing the first series, David and Jen, when you were working on it, were you thinking about series 2, possibly series 3 going forward?
Not at all, I don't think.
No, we weren't. I mean,
We did.
we can lie and say that we were, but I mean, all I would say is right at the very beginning, when I think I was first talking to Walter and Joe about this, right at the very beginning, I remember having a discussion. We said, do you know what? There's like 3 ways we could play this. We can have a series of characters and then we stay with them, or we do an anthology series, one of which means we stay on the streets and we just move into a different house, which is what we did in the end. Another one is we're in a different location altogether, kind of White Lotus style.
And that still could happen should we be lucky enough.
Yeah, it could.
But I think, because we should say that the original Dutch series, I think ran to, is it 4 or 5 series? And they did keep the original characters. They just carried on, but it got very, very, crazy.
I remember,
away.
I think I had a little look at the beginning of the second
I watched
series,
some of it, didn't I?
And
it was like,
this is the least sexy thing I've ever seen in my life.
because it ended differently to ours.
Very differently.
In the way that, I don't know if you saw, or Hannah, did you see all of our series 1? I can't remember.
Yeah.
But in the end of the Dutch one, so Becca dies, the equivalent of Becca dies, and Evie gets shot by her father.
Oh,
okay. Yeah.
So it's quite different. So
very different.
When you get to series 2, Evie's been in a coma conveniently for about 6 months.
I can't remember this.
And then the Danny character breaks out of prison, I think, to try and kill her, but then she wakes up.
Okay.
And she's
Absolutely
in getting
ridiculous.
shot. Then she lost her womb, so no baby. So then she ends up the new neighbours who come in who are in witness protection. She ends up stealing their baby, and that's where the original show went.
Oh, okay.
Which
So you're already starting at 100.
Yes.
In terms of that series arc.
Plus, we hadn't killed the right people, so we were in trouble then.
Like the interesting thing about it is about the DNA of the show, and I think that show. I think there is always a thing as well when you keep characters like that. It's very hard to avoid soapiness. It's very hard to go.
You get the Emmerdale plane crash, don't you? Quite.
Yeah.
is it what they call on soaps when you Greek it up? There's got to be someone who's going to die, and there's either someone turns up from the past.
Yeah, that's it. And I think it's a psychological drama, and it is a little bit heightened. And so the characters have been through so much. We kind of got to the end of it, and we were thinking about what would you do with these characters. And we were like, we think they've done everything you want them to do.
Yeah, I mean, we did go through that process. We did say, what would that look like for a while? But actually, I think we were all a lot happier with the anthology idea. I mean, obviously, it's always really sad because then you get people you really like. You're always sad at the end, but then it's nice when you get the new bunch.
What was nice as well is that loads of people have gone, how are you going to introduce new characters? And then when they see it, we're like, we literally just pan left into a different house. And everyone goes, oh, yeah, right, okay, got it, right. And it's just...
Finish that one off.
Yeah, so I think people understand... And I think one of the really interesting things for us, for Jen and I in series 2, is when we sat down and go, okay, what is the couple next door? What do we want to do differently? What do we think we could do better? And what is in the DNA that we must hit? It's really interesting looking. And I think even in terms of the kind of format and how the stories play out.
There is a formula there. Which we maybe need to think about if we get a series 3, because then you realise it's the...
But there are also lots of things we do completely differently. And obviously we've got to make, this is kind of a medical thriller. And so the hospital is a major character, like a third of the scenes are in the hospital. So
with the hospital setting, I remember talking to Jen and hearing about you guys going into theatre to do some research in heart surgery. Can you tell us a little bit about the research process and what that brought into the story for you?
Yeah,
Yes.
immediately I thought, I've got my friend Emma's an eye surgeon, and I've got quite a lot of friends who are doctors and people who work in the NHS and various. And I was thinking, I do not want to screw this up because I don't want them thinking, well, that was crap. And I really have a thing about badly researched dramas where they've just not done the due diligence on the basic stuff. I feel there's a laziness. There's no reason for you not to be able to do this properly. And I got a lovely message from Emma Hollick, the eye surgeon.
Oh, did you?
Jen, saying how much she loved it. I just got that this morning. So
That's nice.
I know. And believe me, she would have told me if she was not happy.
Good.
So, but I think we just wanted to talk to lots of people and trying to get that research right. So we did talk to surgeons, we talked to anaesthetists. And then we were very lucky to have an incredible, two incredibly prestigious heart surgeons, Shyam in the UK and then Luc in Belgium, who were massively across the scripts and making sure everything was word perfect, but even brilliantly coming up with, okay, how do we deal with the situation? What kind of minor medical emergency could we have here where the character needs to do this? And then the cast all got to go. I didn't get.
I did.
You did.
Yes.
Tell us about that, Jen.
Yeah, so go back a little bit. But yeah, so we had Shyam, he's been a medical advisor. He was on Holby for like 20 years, medical advisor, but he's this massively excellent heart surgeon who travels the world teaching heart surgery. And he's also very eccentric and just hilarious. We initially went in with a load of questions, had a general call. Then we asked him, as David says, we said, okay, we've got this scenario, this scenario, this scenario. Can you suggest some things? And then we sent him the scripts and said, correct these. Then we got there because we couldn't afford to fly him over to be in Belgium because he's a very fancy heart surgeon. So we were incredibly lucky to find Luc in Belgium, who was just the loveliest man. And he was retiring. So he was at a point in his career where he had a little bit more time. So he came on board and then Luc came on set. And so I went with Belle to see an aortic valve replacement.
Wow.
And it was terrifying and incredible because we were just pushed into this sort of changing room and they're like, okay, put scrubs on. But there was no woman to come in with us. So we were just standing there going, oh God, what do we do? How do we tie the hat? So we did it. And then it was like, come in. So we came into this surgery and I think probably from much watching of Grey's Anatomy, I thought, well, maybe we'll be in the gallery or we'll be far. No, we were like, the patient was here. The sterile zone around the patient is tiny. And then there was us just standing at the side. And Luc wasn't operating. His son was operating with another surgeon. So he stood beside me and Belle and just talked us through the whole thing. And at one point they had a little step ladder set up by the patient's head so we could stand. And I let her do mostly because obviously she was the one that has to learn. Just standing looking over this man's head into his body and watching the heart stop and all the blood going through the heart-lung machine, and then them do all their thing, which actually looked really simple. I came out of it thinking, I could do one of these aortic valve replacements because it was just like a sort of, they cut the open, and the aorta is massive. Sorry, I could talk about this forever. Put a new valve in, lots of knots, and there you were. But then they had to get the heart going again, and there was a lot of sort of prodding and all that, and it was just incredible.
Wow.
I mean,
and they were just so casual.
We're not going to let Jen do this.
No,
procedure, guys.
Does that not go on the list of producer? Because I think one of the things that's coming out is, Jen, how you're kind of, when we hear producer, it's sort of everything all at once. Define for us what you are as a producer.
Yeah, because I think, I don't know.
There's two different kinds, isn't there, really?
There are, and I don't know if really, I think I've been incredibly lucky because both on Mystic, when I worked with Hannah, and now the kind of producer I've been able to be is, I don't really know if it's a job that exists everywhere else because I still call myself half a producer. I'm a creative producer. So I don't put the crews together. I don't get the money in. But I get to be there from sort of, on the second series, blank page through to delivery. So I get to be involved in absolutely everything through casting, the scripts. We don't have another script editor. So even when I'm a producer, I am that person. I'm on set representing the writer. I'm watching cuts. I go into all the ADR sessions. And then sort of the last few weeks, I'll be across all the publicity stuff that's coming in. I choose the stills days. I choose the photographs, like all that kind of, there's just lots and lots of things. But primarily it's anything creative I get to be involved in.
I don't know why we don't do that more. And I think creative producing used to be much more of a thing than it is now, because I think what happens is a lot of the indies also have got their own producer, and then they end up just hiring a line producer. And by a line producer, I just mean running the stuff on set, but not necessarily someone who's been across a creative. The benefit of doing this way round is that Jen is like a Bible of everything. And she knows, and as a writer, it's so reassuring. if someone is talking about this scene or why this scene is there, Jen can tell you why the scene's there or what the scene means. Or if she needs to ring me and say, we might have to lose a scene or whatever else, we can talk about the solutions. Because Jen and I have known the scripts for so long, we are able to evaluate that stuff properly. And I think sometimes if you're dealing with a producer who's dealing just with the nuts and bolts of the day-to-day stuff, there's a disconnect between that and the creative team. And we're just, again, it's about making sure the creative team and the production team are on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, there is a lot, and there's a lot of little silly day-to-day stuff too. I think what's different about all the jobs I've done, and I don't know how that translates for me into a future career, because both Mystic and Couple obviously film abroad. So it's quite different. And actually in Belgium, it's interesting that the producer role I do doesn't exist out there. They have line producers and that's it. So I think it took them a little while to get used to us as British producers being there and being creatively involved, because they were slightly resistant to that, I think, initially.
But it works so well.
But it works,
series two.
But I think so I think part of that, because of all the shows I've worked on are filmed abroad, another part of it is kind of being there for the actors as well, to sort of be their British, holiday rep in a way, to be like, okay, we're in Belgium, this is all a bit crazy. And I mean, our AD team are fantastic. They do all the looking after, they're making sure practically the actors are fine. But I think just knowing there's someone else from the English side there is helpful as well for them.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you're doing probably what they'll be, all those roles get covered by individual people. And because they're not, like you said, David, they're not across the whole process. They only come in to do that bit. Like you'll have a script editor if you're lucky, or script consultant at the beginning stage, and then you'll have your line producer, and then you'll have someone on set to do the other stuff, and it goes on. You miss that organicness that things evolve. Like, I mean, what's interesting, I would love to know, is when you're in the edit, how much are things shifting and changing at that stage?
That's when we get our own back with notes, as we say. And what's also really funny is when you're working with other countries, is you have to start learning, because the way they give notes and the way they receive notes is different to how we do it in Britain. And you realise that our notes, we're so polite, or we should be. I'm not saying everyone is, but we always couch notes in, maybe you might want to think about changing this up a little bit, or perhaps this isn't quite working. Belgians know none of that. When they send you notes, they will be incredibly blunt to be like, this isn't working. And then you realise that you have to do the same back. So I remember at the beginning last year of series 1, in the edit process, we would send our edit notes back like that. We'd like, perhaps have a little look at this scene because something not quite working at the end. And now you're like, no, change this shot. If you're not absolutely direct, they'll just think you're just saying, oh, well, maybe. And they go, oh, we won't do that. It's been really, it's really interesting to see this sort of differences. And I think we had the same in New Zealand, didn't we, Hannah? With,
absolutely. Just working out, our style of notes versus theirs, and making sure that your voice is being heard through. I mean, it sounds like you're the voice of consistency through the production, which is so valuable. You make all these decisions going through that development process, and there are reasons why you've done certain things, and it's great for people to question it. But it's fantastic that you're there to say, oh well, because we're seeding this here because in episode whatever.
Yes, you can see why you've taken that out, but you need to put it back in this thing, because otherwise that won't make sense.
Because otherwise you pull that one thread and the whole thing unravels.
Yeah,
I think the phrase "Ask Jen" is one of the most used phrases because that could mean a small production issue, a large production issue, a creative issue. The director, everybody's like, well, what is Jen? What's Jen? Is Jen there? Is Jen on the call? Can we talk to Jen? Because I think everybody knows you're sort of this conduit right in the middle, which you manage really well, I have to say, because it's a lot. But I mean, but I did just go back to the edit as well. I just think it is worth reiterating, because I think it's something that you're not aware of as a writer until you get more involved in the edit. Just what an extraordinarily important and creative role that job is, and how a good editor can do incredible things. But again, that rhythm and that understanding of how a story works is just, I'm still learning loads about it. It's really interesting, because I'm sort of fascinated by, if you reorder again, and you're really good at this, Jen, I think, like just going, well, hang on, what about if we put it this way around and we get that one there first, and the logic of a story. We have this big sort of medical ball in episode 2, and there's a lot of characters. It's a big set piece. It's enormous. There must be almost every main character is involved in that scene, and how we told the story and in which order and what music in the background and where, it just took an awfully long time to make it work properly. And then suddenly it did. And, that was just about reordering it a certain way and to and fro with all of that. And that's all in the edit as well.
Well, I think it's good for writers to know as well that the writing process never finishes until yesterday when that show was on screen. Right through the edit, you are writing this, adding ADR, adding lines. That's incredibly important as well. There'll often be times that, once we've got the edit, we will then sit and go through all the ADR together, won't we? And sort of say, okay, what needs to be added, what is okay. And it's never finish writing.
I mean, you definitely finish at some point, but I know what you mean.
But only when it's too late.
Well, it's true.
Well, that's a great place for us to start winding down. And we want to ask all our guests this one question, which is, what advice would you give your younger self trying to break into the industry, knowing what you know now? Jen?
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I think don't give up, you'll get there. I remember I had a huge gap. So I started as a production runner, then I ended up working for EastEnders for many years. I did a script coordinator role and I stayed there far, far too long. Slightly lost my confidence, I think. And then did the NFS development diploma. And then after that, I was doing some freelance script editing. But there was a period of about 4 years, I think, where I was not working full time. I didn't have much money. It was all feeling a bit scary. And it wasn't really until Mystic came along that actually I went back to EastEnders first and then Mystic. The things started to fall into place. But I think I remember somebody saying to me then, it's like the people who succeed are the people who don't give up, who just keep going. And I think, it does take a toll on you. And I think you have to decide if it's worth it for you, if things aren't going well, or if you can financially cope with it. But I think, that resilience you build during the hard times, I think then stands you in very good stead, because it's not an easy job. Writing is not easy. It's a very lonely place to be. And I think if you can't cope with it, then that's fine to realise and go off and do something else. But I think if it's really all you can imagine doing it, just keep going and you'll get there in the end.
Yeah, I think my advice is incredibly similar, and I probably had a similar experience that you sometimes do find yourself suddenly, you've maybe had 3 things in development that didn't get made, and suddenly your IMDb looks really, really, great big hole in it. And Couple was a huge part of me coming back out of that again and coming into this place that was bigger than I could have hoped for, to be honest. And I think I'm sure every writer's had this. You've had bleak times where you think, what if I didn't do this anymore? And it's quite, in a way, if the answer is I can't not do this, then you might as well make the best of it, because if you can't bear the thought of not doing it, one advice I would give, which I learned from a really interesting, brilliant creative coach called Cheryl Garrett, who was amazing in helping turn my head around when I was having a hard time. And that was one of the, it sounds really obvious, but as a writer, are you writing right now? Are you writing constantly? Do you always have something on the go? Because it is hard to get something made. And so are you giving yourself the best chance? Do not write one script and then hawk that script around for 2 years and then wonder why it doesn't happen. Because you need various eggs in various baskets, and you need to be able to get used to the idea of the creative process being, right, what am I writing next? And one of the things I did was I actually just had a spec script I wanted to write, and I had an idea that had been in development for like 9 years with 3 different companies that never got made, and it had never gone to script. And I just thought, that's the script I want to write because I'm really passionate about it. And I wrote that script, and that's what got me in the door with Walter and Joe. So I think it is good to remind yourself, have you got a passion project? Maybe don't wait for permission. Development process can be exhaustingly long. Just write the next thing you want to write, and don't wait. It's also easier to sell a script than it is to sell an idea, because you've got it down on the page. So there are lots of reasons why. So ask yourself, am I writing right now? Am I writing something right now that's going to push me forwards? I think that's the lesson, I think. And we can all fall out of that, or you're stuck writing treatments, or you're stuck doing pitch meetings or whatever. While you're doing that, are you writing the next thing? And I think that's the really, really good piece of advice.
And tapping into that passion project is making sure that your voice is coming across. There'll be something about that idea, some experience that you're bringing to it. There's a reason why it's a passion for you, and it's a great way to show off your voice.
Totally. That idea is set in a Normandy seaside town where I worked in a hotel when I was 19. So of course there's a connection to it because I know that place. And so, still hasn't got made, by the way, but sometimes that's not the point. It's interesting because I think I would say also never chase the thing, like if people say, oh, the broadcasters are looking for blah, blah, blah right now, just ignore that because in 2 years' time, by the time you've developed your thing, they will not be looking for that. So I'm serious, look, almost like what's the opposite of what everyone's saying to do? Because sometimes that's actually quite useful. And if you're chasing the thing that everyone else is chasing, you're also giving yourself even less chance. Lean into who you are, lean into your own voice and your own originality and hone that and keep working on that. You don't always know why. Sometimes you work on something. I had this with a couple. It was only sort of once we made series 1 that I understood why it was so in my wheelhouse. You have to find your way with that sometimes,
As we are a podcast called No Bad Notes, we want to encourage people to embrace notes. But sometimes the way to embrace a note is to use it as a sounding board for a certain direction that you want to go in. So have you ever had a bad note, not from this project necessarily, but something that at the time didn't sit right with you, but you were able to have some distance and perhaps flip and use it in a way that was helpful?
Gosh, yes. I mean, look, sometimes you're not a good creative fit with the people you're working with, and it's just the alchemy of whether that works or not. What I have had is like being pushed to some, can we turn this around so it's actually their POV, not theirs? And I'm like, no, that's the central character. That's the story I want to tell. And they're like, well, how about it's not them? And, sometimes you go through that process where you're being pushed in a direction. You're thinking, okay, well, let's just start it. And then suddenly you look at it one day and you think, this isn't my project anymore. This isn't the thing I want to write. And it's incremental. It's not like overnight. And at that point, you have to say, look, I've kind of lost this now. This is not the thing I want to do. And obviously, once you get more experience, hopefully you get better. But it still happens, and it's not like these people are being horrible to you. It's just they wanted to make something else than the thing you wanted. And you have to decide whether you're comfortable with that or not. And probably, again, if you've lost the passion in it because it's not the POV you want to tell the story of, it ain't going to get made because you're going to go to a broadcaster and they're going to smell the lack of passion.
It's a fine line, isn't it, between listening to a note that's going to propel the project to a better place, like the notes you were getting from Jen, and actually the notes that go, like you said, this isn't the right fit, and being able to discern between the two of them. And quite often, people starting, they think, oh, if I do this, because Channel 4 said, let's do this, they're going to say yes, and I will get my thing made. And actually, it's the opposite, because you end up in a direction that you don't know where you're going. They don't know that you don't know where you're going, and it's all lost.
And certainly anecdotally, I've heard other writers talking, and one writer recently I was talking to said that when he was first working with a company, he said yes to all the notes that he was given. And they said, why did you put that terrible dialogue in? And he said, well, that's what you gave me. And he said, no, I just wanted to give you an idea. So it's more trying to take that feedback and put it into your own voice. We're not saying that we should necessarily take every note, but every note is useful in terms of that working relationship, whether they are the right fit for you, whether you're both on the same page in terms of the vision.
I remember somebody telling me early when I was a researcher actually at EastEnders, and the person I was taking over from saying, this was actually giving notes, because we used to have to tell people all the time things they didn't want to hear, and then they say, we don't care because we want to tell this story, even though you were being pressured by all these charities saying this must be factually accurate. But I remember this woman saying to me, she said, you have to decide what are your die in the ditch notes. What are the things that you will not compromise on? And I know another podcast I listened to said their thing is, does it move the needle? And if you decide on those and then looking at other notes and thinking, would I die in a ditch for this? Does this move the needle? And then sort of being prepared to be open on those. Because I think the more open you are when you realise actually to you it doesn't matter, then the more seriously people will listen when you go, no, this central thing is incredibly important to me. And I think if they feel you're cooperating, then you're more likely to keep the thing you love.
I think that's really, pick your battles is really important. Like getting hung up about this one thing, if it's really important to somebody else, like, you should be able to understand it's not going to like impact the creative vision. But if someone really hates a line or they hate something in a scene, we've all had those things. We've all had those moments. There's something I really disliked in episode 1 of series 2. I did not win that battle. And I watched it again. Do you know what it is, Jen?
Yes, I do know what it is.
Yeah, do you know what?
You cope with it.
No, I had several messages about what said, I'm not going to say it. Anyway.
Do you know, I was sitting next to Jo at the screening, and she looked at me and she went, that.
Yeah, there's a moment I think it looks very much like a Belgian nightclub, not a place in Leeds. And I was like, there's a dancer wearing furry boots in it. And it set me from the moment I said it. And my daughter, my 20-year-old daughter at uni, watching with all her friends, rang me afterwards and she went, we loved it, but what the hell was that nightclub? Yeah. And I was like...
There's admittedly a lot less of it in the final cut than there was in the first cut.
But this is one of these weird little moments when you're like, you're having to explain to the Belgians, guys, not to be critical, but that does look very Belgian. Yes. But it's a way of saying that without sounding like you're saying like it's just, and a kind of podium dancer with furry boots on is just it's just a different vibe.
I don't know what it says about me, but that didn't rub me in any way whatsoever. I was very
it got me thinking. I went,
good.
Is that Leeds?
Thank you.
What?
Thank you.
None of it changed so much that like
none of it's Leeds in this series.
No.
Much too well.
So what I really want to know is, guys, what are you moving on to next? What's the next big thing coming out? What do you want to plug? This is your moment to just let us know what's happening in the next 6 months for you.
Well, everything for me is happening this week. So, and then I've got nothing. So I also, as well as producing Couple, I do a little bit of script editing. I'm a very, very tiny bit of the show on a show called Bookish, which Mark Gatiss has created and is starring in. And so series 1 comes out tomorrow, as we're talking Tuesday, Wednesday. In fact, episode 2 of Bookish and episode 3 of Couple are going out completely head to head.
Which is crazy.
What a week.
Which is crazy.
I know, what a week.
But with that show, we are incredibly lucky that they recommissioned it before it's even gone out. So at the moment, we're still doing little press things for Couple, but we're just at the end of the scripts on Bookish, so we'll send them off. They'll be heading off to Belgium in the next few months to film those. We've just sent our read-through drafts out this morning, which is exciting. So that will be happening. But it's totally different to Couple because I now have nothing. Once it goes off to film, it's not my problem anymore. I'm not across casting. I'm not across the edit. So that's a very, very different role. And then I'm having a break.
Yeah.
Well deserved.
Very well deserved.
No, I mean, like I said, we've been working for like it's something ridiculous, 2.5 years or something like. So it's much needed, I'm sure. And at some point, I'm sure we're going to have a discussion about what we do if there was another Couple and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I don't know if I'm allowed to say. I can't remember if it's whether it hasn't been announced. I'm allowed.
This ain't going out for a while, so.
Well, I suppose we say we did do the initial bit, didn't we? I suppose we
did do the initial bit. Jen and I worked to develop an adaptation of a French series, which
we probably can't name.
We can't name yet, but for a different channel, and that has got a green light. So,
congratulations!
So, thank you. So I'm writing. In fact, I'm literally going. In fact, I've had Walter's left. He's left me to one of his long voice messages right now while we're on this. I can see on my WhatsApp.
Yes, you're saying, how do we get notes? Quite often we get notes.
That's how we get notes.
By most of very excitable Italian
Excitable
long
Italian
voice
leaves me 5-minute long voice messages, which is, I think there were 3 of them during this podcast that have landed in my WhatsApp.
Yes, so we have a shared WhatsApp.
I'm going to get off and work out what's going on.
A couple.
Exactly. So, but yeah, that's very exciting. So that's going to be my life for the next few months, and we will be filming in the beginning of next year. So they're keeping me busy.
That's busy. And you also host your own podcast.
I co-host. I'm a bit of a big music fan. So there's 2 things I would plug if you don't mind.
Please do.
I co-host a music album review podcast called This Is Not Happening with 3 friends. I think we've been doing that for several years. I think we're on episode like 47 or something like that now. So we just review an album every month and discuss tracks that we like. And that is called This Is Not Happening. You can find it anywhere you find a podcast. And that's if you're into music. I also host a radio show playing foreign language pop music, anything not in the English language. Everything like French pop, Italian disco, Arabic disco, Brazilian salsa, everything like that. And that is called Mondo Pop, and that is on an internet station here in Leeds called Alto Radio. And again, I'm nearly done 50 episodes of that, so I've been doing that for about 3 or 4 years.
Yeah,
Do you know what? I love that more than I can tell you. It takes me far too long to do.
it does. We'll often be halfway through drafts, and David's like, I've got to do my podcast. And you end up doing some very long hours, don't you, on podcast weeks?
I do and stuff, but I mean, I think
Radio
do you know
show
what?
weeks.
It really makes me happy, and it's lovely to also. I think that another maybe a bit of advice is if you're a creative person, try and find as many different creative things to do. Because what I love about the radio show is it's me. I decide what I play it. That's it. No one's giving me notes. No one's, seriously.
Not even me.
Not even Jan. No one's giving me notes on this. So if you can find a little side hustle, it's just makes me happy to play my silly music. And so I do that every month as well. So
I love a bit of Eurovision each year, but then the rest of the year I don't really listen to anything that is, perhaps from another country.
So this is like Eurotrash, which was my favourite programme.
Yes, it is. I mean, I'd like to think some of my.
I think it's more higher brow.
I'd like to think I'm a bit classy in that, but that's fine. Yes. I see where you're headed. It's fine. I did an entire Europop episode a little while ago. But anyway, if you look at Mondo Pop, I think it's mondopop.uk. You can find my website, and there's a whole back catalogue of
I'm doing that. I love it.
There you go.
And now we're at that part of our show. We want to introduce Jack.
Hello,
Jack's
Jack.
our wonderful graduate from Queen Mary University. Jack, what's your burning question?
What you were talking earlier about how TV and film is an industrial process, and actually you guys were really, really lucky and cultivated a show where there was a really nice synergy between editorial and production. And one of the characters that I was most intrigued by, the storylines I was most intrigued by in season 1 was Alan. And I wondered if that sort of synergy between writing and production extends to how you write different characters that cross over between series. As one of the few characters that you've written for both, do you now, write Alan differently to kind of match Hugh Dennis's performance and the idiosyncrasies he gives them?
That's interesting, isn't it?
Well, we had that interesting conversation with Hugh, didn't we, at the beginning? Because we got him in before. I don't know what you'd written at that point. Not written an awful lot. We knew we wanted him to be back in it, and we talked to him about the story, and he had some quite strong feelings about how Alan, because obviously he had a stroke at the end of series 1, so he had to decide. He couldn't speak a lot.
No, he said, if we're going to do this, don't make it easy for him. Don't make this easy. I'm not doing spoilers, but Hugh had loved doing series 1, and he said he loved, because he's such a national treasure. I think he never played a character like this, and I think he just loved people coming up to the street. People come and go, "Oh my God, you're so creepy!" And for some reason, he really enjoyed that
because he's the loveliest person in real life.
So, honestly, so nice. Yeah. And so I think he was like. We were like, okay, well, let's bring him back. It's like the continuity. And it's an interesting puzzle. Could you redeem a character like that? It's an interesting challenge. And without giving, it's really hard not to spoiler this. I mean, he plays a really interesting and pivotal role in this story that's quite fascinating and unusual. And it's an extremely different journey from series 1. And it asks a totally different performance from Hugh as well, actually. But I suppose I think once you've written a character for a while, you have an essence of how they speak or how they think so you don't lose that, but it's really interesting to put a character who's been in one world and force them to, because as a character Alan is well outside his comfort zone with some of what happens, and it's really great to see Hugh wriggle in that situation. I mean, it's got some amazing stuff at the end of the series.
Can we also give a little peek behind the scenes, just thing to look out for if you watch the series, is the fact that we've talked quite a bit on other press about the fact that we had snow very unexpectedly when we were filming the cul-de-sac, which we like to blame Hugh for, because we moved our cul-de-sac dates because he was doing the outnumbered Christmas special, so I blame him. But when you see him sweeping those leaves throughout the series, he's always under the same tree because it snowed so much that we could only clear a really small amount of grass for him to be sweeping. And also, as David, I think, mentioned in our screening the day, if you look carefully as well, the leaves he's sweeping, because we were filming just as the autumn was ending, and Walter, we've talked about a lot, was absolutely insistent that we would have leaves on the trees and there would be autumn colour. So the art department spent 4 days sticking leaves on trees.
This is true. Literally
But-
sticking them to
Yeah.
trees.
But as David pointed out, if you look closely, the leaves he's sweeping are not in any way the same as the leaves are
so
on the
different
trees.
to the leaves on the trees. It's really
Because I think they
obvious.
shipped in real leaves for the ground, but the ones on the trees are plastic.
The leaves on the trees. And it's only on the lower part of the trees, and I did
Yes.
notice there's a wide shot when
There is, and I did say to Reece, are we going to put some CDI leaves on the top? He was, and he's like, no.
no one noticed. But there's these incredibly vibrant orange leaves
Yeah.
on the trees, and then these muddy, horrible brown things on the ground. It's completely different, but no one seems to notice.
No,
Love
so
it.
there you go.
Magic of
television.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear about the journey of this project and just insights as well into your careers and experiences. I think there's lots of fantastic takeout. So thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good luck with everything else, and good luck with the second series. Hope you
so
smash
much.
it.
Oh,
Cheers.
thank you.
The Couple Next Door series 1 and 2 are available to download right now on Channel 4.
Channel 4, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. You too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
We were so blown over by David and Jen, and this is the part of our podcast where we turn to ourselves and we go, what are our takeaways? So I'm going to ask Hannah. Hannah, what was your takeaway from today's interview?
Jen and David are just the gold standard of collaboration. I really enjoyed listening to them and the relationship and the trust that they've built. But one of the great takeaways that I had was that any experience that you have in the industry is all useful, good experience. So Jen made a sort of comment about being in a job as a production coordinator at EastEnders that she felt like she'd perhaps been in a bit too long. But actually, when I look at her career, I think, well, you've got production experience as a coordinator, and then you've got this wealth of editorial experience as well. And now that all comes together to launch her into this amazing creative producer role where she can sit over everything, because that experience that she's had beforehand in different roles enables her to understand the requirements of different departments. So I think you just have to get out there and do it. If this is an industry that you want to work in, say yes to a job, say yes to making coffee, say yes to being an edit assistant, even if you don't necessarily want to be an editor. I think there are things that you will learn in that job that you would never know where you might use it later on. But I think all of that goes into making Jen the exceptional creative producer that she is. That really resonated.
Wonderful. And Jack, what's your takeaway?
I think probably my biggest takeaway was when David was talking about having multiple eggs in multiple baskets. When you want to become a writer, you have to be writing all the time. But I think the thing that was really interesting about what he said is when you look at it from the outside in, or you look at someone's IMDb page, it's just a kind of sequential lineage of projects. You think you just go from one thing to the next, but actually it was really useful to know that you have multiple things that you're working on all at the same time, and that can be a few that you're writing in the early stages, a few that you have in development, and then a couple that are in production. That was really, really useful to know as someone who's looking to make a living doing this sort of thing.
And keep writing.
And keep writing. Yeah, absolutely.
Keep writing. Exactly.
Keep writing.
Build that portfolio. How about you, Athena?
I mean, it was so wonderful. I think there were so many takeaways. But one of the things that really resonated with me, like you, was the relationship of trust between the writer and Jen as a creative producer in this, because I'm really fortunate that with my producer on my feature film, I have got, there's so much trust that she can tell me all the notes and they all make sense and I can really go deep in them. But I've also, over the years, heard horror stories where on the one side where producers want to be writers, give notes, and when the notes get taken up, feel they are owed a writing credit. So writers become a little bit defensive about, hang on a minute, if I take this, am I going to have to give you my firstborn? And on the other side, where writers feel that notes are the enemy and their job is to go, how can I make them think I've taken it on when I can really do my own thing? But what they showed us, and we were so lucky to have them on the show to just show us an excellent example of this, is that actually good collaboration and both knowing what their role is, and it's not in conflict of each other. There was no ego. What can we do to make this the best thing that we're going to make? And David's openness to take notes and Jen's understanding on how to give the notes, that I mean, it was almost like a writing collaboration. Like, you know, it was great.
And David's request to have a script editor, you know, the way the production company was set up, he didn't necessarily have to have Jen. They brought a script editor in, and then Jen grew into this producer role. But how smart he is that he knows he wants someone to feed back and bounce ideas between them. And that is really what the show's all about.
And I think sometimes where notes or where we pay for consultants, there is this idea that there's a script doctor come to fix your script. And you only go to them if you're ill, like if the script's not working. But actually, he wasn't going, I want a script editor because I can't write. He's going, I will write so much better if I've got someone to talk through ideas and get feedback. So that openness is hat off to you, David.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the dream producer-writer partnership. And I think one thing that they both do really well is they sort of set any ego aside and they just focus on what's best for the script and for the show, and ultimately creates a better product.
Yeah. I always think there's no room for an ego in this creative process. You will only trip up. Thank you once again to our guests, David Allison and Jennifer Burnet.
No Bad Notes is created and hosted by Athena Mandis and Hannah Palmer Pryor.
The show is produced and edited by Jack Richards.
The album artwork is by Andy Healy.
And the music created by Jack Richards using Launchpad by Novation.